Welcome back to Art with Mackenzie. We are on episode 2 of our IMHET 120mm round modeling tutorial. We're picking up where we left off, which was at the tip. And don't make any dirty jokes, because this is a clean channel that don't make dirty jokes. So what we're doing here is what we're going to call the test portion. If you're following along, you don't necessarily have to model this with me. I want to show you my process and my failures on this one because I don't get it right every time. I am not an engineer, mechanical or electrical or otherwise. So I do a lot of testing and failures. And this is kind of a failure, but I learned along the way, which was nice. I learned a couple things here that I'm going to show you. The one good thing that did come out of this was the fin, which you will be modeling with me. So if you are joining along, do the minimum. I'll just tell you when to start modeling stuff. This is, I just wanted to get the basic size of these little sleeves that the fins come in. And I wanted to know how thin to make the fins. I also didn't know how this was going to print, so my initial thought was I'll just print it all together, and hopefully the fins I can print on the inside of this sleeve, and it will magically work the way I want. However, it did not. I also learned quite a bit on the new beveling, which has become a bit of a pain, and I will show you that here in just a little bit. After I'd already figured it out. So we'll add a cylinder. This is going to be our pivot point for our fin. It needs to have a little hole that has a small axle on the inside connected to the fin so it can move and rotate. And the best way I can think of to knock out a perfect hole is to add these cylinders and then use the Boolean function to make my hole. If you've got a better idea, leave it down in the comment section below because I'd love to hear it. But this is the best way I do it. And when I run into this and I just start building, I don't have, enough of a library of knowledge and tools to figure out how to do everything, so this is me fumbling about trying to get it right. We will cover in the next episode the much better way to do this. So for right now, you can just watch me kind of guess as to what I'm doing. The idea was to give it a thickness to fit the fin in, because I am printing this out, and I'll show you a print here a little bit later on in the video. And I don't have measurements on this thing like it's a real CAD program, so a lot of this is a bunch of eyeballing and a bunch of guesswork. But I do my best with what I can. And there aren't too many reference photos that I need, so I find the ones that are close enough, I guess. I found that little doozy on the internet just searching, and I would suggest getting as many reference photos as you can. Google is a great resource for that, and usually when I go into modeling, I'm not sure exactly what I want. So I'll get different pictures from different places and just kind of meld it all together. I guess it's the art part of modeling here. Now with this fin, you can model this if you're following along with me, because the fin works out well. But I did have problems with the hinge. I'm new to blender modeling. I'm also new to resin printing. and I make these to sell. So the pipeline between modeling to printing isn't always a linear one, because I'm not too sure exactly how things are going to print out. So the thought behind this was this hinge was going to be printed along with that fin. Like the fin would be supported, because everything you print needs to have some kind of support. So I thought the fin would be supported, and it would keep printing up until it hit this hinge, and the hinge would print beautifully inside a hole, and this fin would be able to rotate inside that hole without the need of any other type of mechanical exertion, I guess, to put the fin in place. That did not work out. That was not what I was planning on. It was kind of a pain in the ass, but I did finally get it to work, and I'll show you that here in the next video. And it all has to do with this little pivot point and the cylinder that we put in. It needs to be cut at a bias to slide into this little sleeve that we're modeling here. And while I do change the sleeve, the dimensions of it don't change, because I got this fin. I mean, it's a perfect size. It's just the model itself of the sleeve isn't that great. And I kind of fiddle my way around it and solve it after playing with it a little bit. And don't have any dirty thoughts on that. We're talking about modeling here. Grow up. But when you're modeling to print is a lot different than modeling for having assets in a game, let's say. For example, you can have, the cut through of anything that you're creating here in Blender. A model can cut through another model just fine, because it's all computer programming. In the real world, obviously, physical objects can't commingle in the same space. We haven't figured out that technology yet. So you have to make room for these objects to fit. And that's kind of what you have to be thinking of as you model for future printing. And here I'm trying to get it to pivot inside that lower stop. So I just make these little adjustments and try to keep my head in a 3D space. And sometimes I actually do get the modeling right on the first go. And I did with this fin. This fin, once this fin is done modeled, then I don't mess with it again. It's that sleeve that I have to mess with, and the warhead itself. Because for the fin to fit in tightly with inside the shell, I have to cut grooves into the warhead base, so the fin will kind of sit in there nice and neat. And I like keeping, I don't know how other artists do it, watching other people, real Blender professionals, just zip around this workspace. I don't know if they're lazy like me. I like to keep my views square to the world. So with that little gimbal in the right hand corner, I'll usually be on the x-axis or the y-axis, and that's how I'll model everything, to keep everything square and plumb. Kind of easy to do when we're doing constructing something that's symmetric everywhere in a 360 angle. or symmetric to itself, I guess I should say. But when you get into other types of modeling and sculpting, then being square to the world isn't so important. But I can't do that. I can't just put something somewhere and then start modeling around it. I don't have those skills. So I keep everything square and plumb to the world using that gimbal. And for this hinge, it needs to rotate inside of something. So I grab a cylinder, and I will do a Boolean cut. I think that's an add-on in the preferences. So if you go to Edit, Preferences, and then search Bool, and the add-ons should have a Boolean add-on, and it's really neat. You take your object and hit Shift, Control, Negative, and it should cut out the object that you're working with. It works really well with simple objects that have basic faces and basic planes. When you start getting into things with multiple anything, it doesn't quite work so well. I haven't quite figured out the trick to that yet. I'm sure I will. I just haven't yet. And with the hinge here, I add a little flare to the side of it for two reasons. One, I'm hoping it'll look a little bit cooler, because the two things that make any type of artwork amazing is contrast and detail. And I can't get too much contrast here, but I can get a little bit more detail in. So that's the first reason I make this. The second reason is this hinge will be a weak point in the model. So as the fins flip up and down, it'll put stress and pressure in this one little area. So I kind of harden it up with the idea that a little bit more resin will make it stronger. I think it seems to work. May not have needed to do it on the inside post thought, but the idea is still solid, even though I may have messed up. And now it's time to repeat these. So I'm going to zoom in the middle of the world, add this 3D cursor to the exact center. How close it needs to be to the exact center, I'm not sure, but I like to have it as close as possible. And I sometimes mess up and don't hit the selection box and keep it on 3D cursor. It's a little bit of a pain in the butt, but I managed through it somehow. So I grab everything here, and I want 6 of them. So 360 divided by 6 is 60. Those are the degrees that I need to be on. So I hit Shift D to duplicate, R and Z, and then type in 60, and it will rotate along the 3D cursor at 60 degrees, and it works out perfectly. And if you want to do 2 or 20, it's the same process. 360 divided by how many ever duplications you want, and it will give you the degree that you need to place them. And one of the new things that I've learned recently that I could have done here are instances. Blender has 5 billion different things. Just look at that top menu. You got layout, modeling, sculpting, UV editor, texture paint, shading, animation, rendering, all this wonderful stuff that have 5,000 submenus and 10,000 submenus in that. So many different things. It's a very powerful tool. The problem is learning it. And I've been doing this for a year just to make stuff, usually for me. Sometimes I sell them because people like the things that I make. and I still haven't learned 10%, I guess. I don't know how much I learned, because there's so much to learn. But one of those things was instances, and that's what I will be sharing in the future videos. It's actually kind of quite simple once you figure it out, and I'll explain it as though you don't know what you're talking about, because I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm new to this. So when you have all these professionals talking to you, they skip by 5 million questions that people like you and me have, namely how things work. Which is why I think you probably follow me and follow along, because we're both doing this together and both learning the process. So all the questions that I have, I'm guessing you have, and then we solve them together. One of the problems I have here, as we're seeing, is I'm putting this tip inside the warhead, and it needs to fit as perfectly as it can without binding. So I make sure there's a little bit of play in between the two models, because I do know that these resin printers are very precise, and I have the Photon Mono 5S, which is a 12K printer, and it will print exactly as you see it. I mean, it's imperceptible to the eye, the layer lines, like everything. I mean, it is precise. So if you model something that'll fit perfectly into itself in Blender, it will not fit in the real world with your printer, because you need to have those minor adjustments in between the two models for it to fit. And a fun add-on to your toolbox, again under Edit Preferences, is the Bolt Factory, which we're going to use here in just a second to add threads. And yes, I did look up YouTube videos. Here we go. Go to Edit and Preferences, Bolt Factory. Boom. Click on it, add it, save it. As I was saying, I did go on other YouTube videos to look how to make threads, and there are some like brilliant artists who can use the array modifier, your Bezier curve, loop tools, all this wonderful stuff to make amazing threads. But I'm lazy, and this tool does it for me. They don't need to be functional, although I'm sure they probably could be. I just need them to work. So I play with this little sub menu here and get rid of the head, get the thread count that I need, thread size, and just get it close. Because again, it doesn't need to function, it just needs to look cool. Again, going back to what makes great art great is the details. And I do these threads kind of small, because again, I have a like great printer which can print that kind of detail. So be mindful of that as well if you are making these models and you want to print them out for yourself. Just know the limitations of your software and your machinery. If you have one of the earlier printers that are maybe 2K, I guess, I don't know what the earlier ones are. I just got into printing myself recently, so I don't know what's been on the market. But if your printer isn't good enough to have high quality fine detail, then just omit it altogether, and save yourself a little bit of hassle. But if you know your machines can create whatever you throw at it, then take your time, do the best you can. Now here, I'm adding a stop, which I'm trying to figure out how to make it work inside this, in the warhead. So I thought having 2 tits on each side, 1 tit on this tip and 1 tit in the warhead, would make each other stop. That did not work. So I have to adjust the bottom here, and I'm having issues. And this happens quite a few times, and I have a bad memory, and I forget why these things happen. But it's happened enough for me to actually remember why it's not that great. And this is because my normals are all out of whack. Because I've been cutting and extruding and messing with this thing. So I recalculate the normals real fast, and boom, it works. So now I'm going to cut out the bottom, and it's going to sit, it's going to form itself into a cap. The cap is going to have these walls here, and then inside the warhead is going to be the tit, and this is going to fit inside that tit, and this tip is going to twist. This is the option of, in the real world, of being able to shoot something in the air or on the ground. Much like the MPAT, the multi-purpose anti-tank round for the M1A2 Abrams main battle tank. It had an option as well on its tip that's either air or ground. And you have a selector switch specifically for that. And when the loader loads the round, he or she will flip it to what you want to shoot. So let's say you want to shoot an Mi-8 Hind. The loader will flip the round to air. He'll let you know impact loaded air. The gunner will put his selector switch to air, and that information goes into the ballistic computer, and the tank does all the math by itself. So it knows it's going to shoot something in the air, and it adjusts accordingly, and it's pretty impressive how that works. And the same thing happens here. So I could have just modeled this entire thing together, but again, I'm a fan of that detail, and tankers love silly things that are fun and silly, and being able to twist the tip of this warhead is something that we enjoy, and we will look for with our toys that we play with. Our very lethal toys, because it's fun. It's fun that way. Here I am readjusting this hinge a little more as I'm thinking about the clearances between the two. Oh, goodness. And I'll show you in just a minute what it looks like printed and how it failed. But I'll go to this the rotating menu, put it back on 360. Normally I have it on median point, and I just learned about individual origins, and I'll be sharing that with y'all in a future video when we make a Camaro and a Corvette. But for now, I just use median point and the 3D cursor. And I want to save resin here, so I just want to make sure that these fins work. So I'm going to print out just the fins. And I use, again, my printers, the Anycubic Photon Mono 5S. They are not a sponsor. That'd be cool if they were. They'd probably just send me resin though, right? Like, I don't have much room for more printers. I could always use resin. Huh. Yeah, that'd be nice. Anyway, I gotta save the resin that I got. And when you do make these models, make sure to punch holes in them, because they will fill up with resin. And when you UV cure them, then they could explode or gush out the side and mess up your model. So make sure you got something that'll drain any of the resin on the inside. And I know there are there's better software than this Photon Workshop, but I'm a Luddite, and new technology scares me. And I've gotten very comfortable with this, and I know how to work it. So use any slicing software that you've got or that you're comfortable with, and just stick with it. But I'm looking to see if these hinges will print on the fin themselves. And I got a few islands that are kind of nerve-wracking, but it looks like they will. So I say print. I do have a remote printer, but it didn't work. It didn't work at this point because sometimes the Wi-Fi is not that great. But here it is. Here's the printed part. You can see the fins look good. The sheath looks okay. It's just those hinges are not working. And yeah, I did wash it a lot. So when I UV cured it, they kind of welded themselves. I got this Sabo here. It worked out fine. And this other round, the inside powder, and this is the impact I was talking to you about. Little switch, air, ground, air, ground, air, ground, air, ground. Because I do sell these on my Etsy page. So here I finally got it to work on just one. And we will explore how I did that in the next video. As you can see, it doesn't fit into the warhead because two objects don't like to maintain the same space. They cannot occupy the same space. So you have to adjust for that in your modeling. So if you like this video, click that like button, share. And if you have any comments, questions, or concerns, leave them in the comment section below. And I will see y'all in the next one.